I'm Jeremy, and today we're going to be replacing a power window motor on this 2010 Nissan Altima. If you're looking for a power window motor, or a power window regulator, or power window switches, or even mirrors, you want to look for the TRQ brand because they're rigorously tested, they're direct fit, and they're going to get your problem solved. So, let's get started. Up here at the top, you're going to want to remove this panel right here because there's a bolt hidden behind it. It's actually a screw, technically. You'll want to take your Phillips screwdriver and put it right in this Phillips head screw so you can take it out. And there's one. Now this pops up just like that, and it comes off. There's just a bunch of clips that hold it in place. They snap into these little holes, and you'll find two more bolts. You can use a Phillips head screwdriver or a 10mm socket to remove these. In our case, we already have the Phillips screwdriver out, so we're going to use that. So now we're going to go around the whole edge of the panel, and we're going to pop a bunch of clips loose that are all around the edge. So we'll start on this side, I guess. There's one. All right, now we're at a point where you can take the panel off. So what you want to do is you want to lift up. Once you've loosened all of the clips around the edge, then you lift up and it pops right off. All right, so we are going to remove these to separate it from the door panel. You just snap them out of their little clips. This one you lift up. They have two different ends, as you can see, so you can't mix them up. On the power window switch, there's 3 different connectors that you have to remove. Unfortunately, my fingers and probably yours are too large to push the little clip, so you're going to need to use a pick or a small screwdriver to push down on the center of this clip. You can see it's right here is where you need to push down, right in the middle of the clip. It's tough to do with just fingers. This one's not so bad. That one's a little bigger. Let's try this one. I don't think that one's going to be able to be done with my fingers. There we go. Yeah, this is another small one that was tough to do. Down at the bottom of the door panel is the interior light that you can pull off on this side. You can use your pick and just kind of pop it out of the door like that. And then right here is a push pin that you push down, and then you can feed it through the door panel. And at that point, your door panel is separate from your door. Okay, with the door panel out of the way, you have access to these 2 covers. And when you pull these off, if your window is up about 6 inches from the bottom, you'll notice there's a 10mm bolt here, and then there's a 10mm bolt right there as well. And what you want to do is remove both of those, and that will release the glass from the window regulator. So we're going to go ahead and do that using a 10mm socket on a 1/4 drive ratchet. I'd say do your best to not drop the bolt inside the door, but even if you do, you can get it later. And there we are. At this point, you should be able to lift the glass right up, just like that. And what I like to do is tape the glass in place, so I'll get some tape. All right, now we're going to take out all 10 of these 10mm bolts that are around this panel. Once we do that, these 4 bolts that happen to have blue paint on them for some reason, those are the ones that hold the regulator onto this panel. So we'll get to those later. First, we're going to start by taking the 10 around the surrounding panel off. All right, so now we've removed the surrounding bolts, and hopefully we can just pull this panel off. There we are. So now you can see the entire window regulator is attached to this panel. So to remove the window motor, you would take out these 3 bolts, and then you can disconnect this, and you can pull the motor off the front, or you can take off the other 4 bolts, and you can take off the regulator itself. So we're going to do that next. All right, so in the interest of taking this off the car completely and having some space to work, we're going to take this harness off, and then we're going to take this completely off the car and work on it on a bench. So we're going to start by disconnecting this connector, like so. And then we're going to pop each one of these off of the panel. All right, so now the whole panel is disconnected from the car. Okay, so now we're going to pull this off. This is inside here is a winding of wire, which you'll see when we pull it off. Using an 8mm socket, of course. Okay, so now underneath here, you're going to see a winding of wire, and this plastic piece needs to go with the black piece. So we need to lift up on this, like so. You want to keep all that together because if it unwinds, it's a world of stress. So we want to avoid that at all costs. And you'll see the window motor falls right out of the bottom. And there's the window motor. All right, to get the motor back on, you want to line up these 3 holes with these 3 holes, which means that this motor is facing in the upward direction, something like that. And then you'll hold it and flip the whole thing over. Okay. So now you need to line up this square with that square. And that may require you adjusting this as you put it on. So let's try it out. Oops. All right, so now they're all lined up. I just have to throw the bolts back in. All right, now we're ready to put the whole thing back in the car. All right, now we're gonna put this panel right back onto the car, just like this. Takes a little fiddling because you have to get the regulator inside the door. Looks like you have to put down this corner first, this front bottom corner first. Once you've done that, you can start putting all the bolts back in. All right, so now I've got all the bolts in. I'm just gonna go around and snug them up. Make sure they're all tight. All right, now we can clip the wiring back in. It's nice and easy, it just pops right into the door. And then this slides right up into the window motor. All right, so now we're ready to slide the glass back down into the door. So we're gonna pull the tape off. Just be very careful to not let the glass drop unexpectedly, because it will want to do that. You'll slide it down until it's about 6 inches up, and then you want to line up the holes in here, which you can see these ones are not quite there yet. So it may take a little fiddling to get it quite right. There we go. So that's perfect. There's a little red dot that'll line up perfectly, and then you can put your bolt in. And the same thing is up here in the front. Looks like both of our holes are aligned, so I'm going to put the bolts in. All right, now we're going to cover these holes back up with these sticky pads that came with it. And then we're ready for the door panel. All right, so we're gonna start by putting this wire through this bottom hole. That's the light that's in the bottom of the door. We're gonna come up here and start plugging in the power window switches. Once the switches are done, then we can do the 2 door pull cables. They just snap right into place. So now you want to put the top of the door panel on first and kind of push it down so it locks into place. You'll feel it latch when it does that. And then you can go around the edges and push all the push pins in. You also want to make sure that your wiring is still sticking out your hole down here, which mine is not. So we're going to have to make that happen. Here we go. All right, now we'll go around the bottom and snap the whole thing into place. Okay, so now we're going to reinstall these 2 Phillips head or 10mm bolts. All right, and with those 2 in, we can now snap this thing into place. All right, down here we can put the connector into the light, which works great, and then snap that into place. Up here we have the very last screw, I believe, which is a Phillips head screw. I'm going to screw that in, and then we can lock this into place.